And so you're going to read the Open Public Meetings Act?
I will. Okay. Let me know when, Joe. It says live. Here comes the video. Ready? Okay. Good evening, everyone. This meeting is being held in accordance with the schedule of meetings adopted at the organizational meeting held on July 6, 2020. Adequate notice of this regular meeting of the Kenilworth Board of Education has been provided to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, the local source. A copy has been filed with the Kenilworth Borough Clerk, posted in the Board of Education business office, the Kenilworth Borough Hall, Burley and Harding Schools, as is provided by the Open Public Meetings Act. The meeting time has been changed to 6:30 by a notice on July 13th, 2020. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act and in consideration of the Executive Order 107 issued by Governor Murphy, the Kenilworth Board of Education does hereby notify the public that to limit public gatherings and to mitigate any person-to-person exposure, this Kenilworth Board of Education meeting will be conducted using Zoom video conferencing. The public will be able to view via YouTube live stream for those interested in watching on their computers at home. The link will be available at 6:30 from the district's website, www.kenilworthschools.com, by clicking on the Kenilworth Board of Ed YouTube channel link under the Board of Education tab. Public comment will be accepted only during public comment period in the meeting via email at publiccomments@kenilworthschools.com or by calling 908-931-9696, extension 2325. Once again, via email at publiccomments@kenilworthschools.com or by calling 908-931-9696, extension 2325. For the record, please include your name and address in all comment requests.
Okay. Can everyone please rise to salute the flag? I
With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic that stands one nation, under God, indivisible,
as well
justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, Mr. Ganell?
Yes. Reiner.
Here.
Ron. Jeannie, I think you're muted.
Here.
I see you. Thank you. David.
Here.
Drogan.
Here.
Paperther.
Here.
Jankowicz.
Here.
Ladati.
Here.
Panici.
Here.
And Zimmerman. We have quorum.
Okay, great. We can proceed. Our first item on the agenda is receiving of the minutes of the secretary from our June 8th and June 24th, 2020 meetings. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes unless there's discussion?
Motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Panici. A second by, was that
Me.
Mr. Jankowicz? Yep. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? So carried. Next item, reading and acceptance of monthly correspondence. Mr. Ganell.
Yes, this evening we have two items. We have a letter dated June 19th from Michael McClure to myself regarding New Jersey School Boards Association membership and services. And we have a letter dated June 26th from Nicholas Piotrowski to myself regarding the Horace Hayman Memorial Scholarship and his appreciation for receiving that scholarship from the Board of Education. That concludes public correspondence.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion to accept the correspondence?
Accept.
Okay, I have a motion by Mrs. Drogan. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Brock. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, so moved. So carried. Next up is our superintendent's report and presentations. Mr. Arlington.
Sure thing. Thank you. Just going to share my screen. Okay, good evening. Tonight, I'd like to provide a real-time update as to where we stand with our reopening planning. I want to start with this image to help graphically conceptualize how we'll share our restart plan over the course of the next few weeks. I want to follow this strategy where we'll share an increasing level of detail. Start with this image to help graphically conceptualize.
That's not good, is it?
We'll follow a strategy where we'll share an increasing level of detail in accordance with the state's timeline that we're mandated to follow, along with our courtesy and concern for parents who need to plan and our faculty and staff who have to make their own childcare and lifestyle arrangements. I understand anything less than a full return to school is a hardship for parents. And while we can't control some of the constructs that we're bound to follow, we're aiming to provide parents and teachers with information as we plan in real time within reason. So with this in mind, as part of a high-level overview, this Friday, I'll be sharing the next level of detail for families via a Friday superintendent's update, along with a survey that asks families to respond to the 2 schedules we're strongly considering and that I'll preview for you tonight. In the first week of August, we'll share the full plan with as many granular level details as possible. And then each week we'll flesh out the lingering questions that still need to be answered, none of which should preclude parents, teachers, and students for planning in advance of September. I start with our collective mission. For those who responded to surveys or reached out directly to me and indicated our planning was tied to an agenda, you're correct. However, the agenda is not political, it's not geared towards secret motives, and it's certainly not hidden. It may seem obvious to some, but it seems important to remind and declare to the public our efforts are focused on responsibly returning all members of our school community to school in a healthy and safe way. While the bulk of the decision-making will happen at the administrative level, we've taken a team approach to our reopening decision-making process. We have about a 70-person committee who's sharing thinking by contributing to the conversation. Belief systems matter. As I touch base with our committee chairs and reflect on concerns and ideas, it's clear that there's an emerging set of guiding principles that govern our reopening. The work of reopening can't just be to fulfill the wish or the hopes of what one person or even a small faction of people want school to look like in September. The work of reopening has to reflect what we believe and what we value as a school community. It's clear that physical health is our top priority, and we have to balance that by continuing to ensure that we're providing for continuity of learning. Even before the pandemic, we spent a lot of professional energy this last school year focusing on social emotional learning and increasing our future-ready practices. Now, more than ever, these things matter. Finally, we believe social emotional health depends on a variety of school experiences, which means we believe athletics and extracurriculars, they matter and play into students' emotional health and sense of community belonging. We're working backwards with the end goal in mind. That is, we've unpacked the DOE and CDC guidance to create checklists and tools to make sure the practices associated with our reopening fulfills the mandates with which we're obliged to comply. But even outside of these obligations, our committees have identified some pressing needs. They exist in the areas of personnel, enhancements to distance learning, increased communications, an intention to be flexible, and a commitment to make our health and safety safeguards public. So I'll start with personnel. The reallocation of budget money, as well as through the coronavirus aid relief and economic security money, we've been able to fill personnel needs that we anticipate as a result of returning to school. Custodians are being added expressly to ensure that high-touch areas, such as handrails, doorknobs, and bathrooms are cleaned throughout the day. And for another school nurse who will join the team as part of our focus on wellness, and technology facilitator who will be key to coaching teachers and ensuring any virtual learning and distance learning initiatives are as user-friendly and effective as possible for both students and staff. Additionally, we are about to contract with Care Plus, a mental and behavioral health organization, to provide additional behavioral health assistance to us. That service will equip us with our schools with 2 consistent clinicians who will work full-time in our buildings with our students and faculty to provide social and emotional support. But here's what you can tentatively expect. I'll drill down into this as part of tonight's presentation. Right, so you can expect a modified school day similar to a half day at Harding, with a strong attempt to get students to school every day. In order to do that, we'll have to slightly stagger start and stop times. We'll be providing childcare. You can expect a rotating schedule where students are grouped into cohorts with distance learning on days when students are not in school. In either building, we're not preparing for lunch except for cases where students are entitled to free or reduced lunch. We anticipate that will be part of a sort of grab and go program. And of course, students who are staying after for aftercare. And then remote learning for students who do not return. You know today, maybe that the governor signed an executive order stating that schools have to prepare and plan for students who choose to stay home. It's our responsibility now to provide for an all remote learning experience for them. As it relates to distance learning versus remote learning. So I think it's important that we differentiate between the two. Distance learning was what we used last spring, a combination of live instruction, that's the synchronous component to teaching and learning, and asynchronous, which was things like screencast and Google Classroom. On days when students are not in person for instruction at Burley Middle High School, you should expect distance learning, but you shouldn't expect live instruction on those days because teachers will be live instructing the cohort that's assigned to be in school on that day. That's different than remote learning, rose by any other name, I guess. Remote learning or virtual learning will be available for students who don't return to school as per the governor's announcement today. We anticipate this will include synchronous and asynchronous learning experiences, but since we just got this guidance today, or this kind of order today, we need a little bit of time to prepare based on whatever guidance is to be released to best meet kids' needs who are choosing to stay home. So regarding remote learning, as I mentioned, this is for students who aren't coming back. We imagine some hybrid approach to have live instruction with pre-recorded instruction. We do know, working with Vito and his team, that we'll need to provide for some protocols for parental permissions because student privacy will play a factor into whatever virtual sort of remote learning looks like. We also know it's going to be impermissible at this time to vacillate between this virtual remote learning and in-person learning because it would just be really disruptive to the teaching and learning process, to the classroom environment. But we also know we'll have to provide some opportunities at several times throughout the year to welcome kids back in. And as I said, since we just got this guidance today, we need to kind of figure that out still. At Harding Elementary School, as I mentioned, we're looking to create a schedule where all students can attend every day on a modified schedule that will roughly follow a half-day schedule. So while it's a big building, class sizes are quite reasonable. So you might be asking, how can we do that? We already have reasonable class sizes. If we need to, we will reassign personnel to create additional grade level sections. We're in the process now through the Buildings and Grounds Department to clear out non-essential equipment and furniture. I don't anticipate the need to, but it's an option. We can repurpose large spaces and convert them into instructional space. Issues like drop-off and pickup will need to be fleshed out and staggered to keep for healthy social distancing requirements. And again, remote or virtual instruction for kids who stay home. At Burley Middle High School, that's not a possibility. The schedule is too unique. Kids' course requests are too unique. So much like lots of high schools right now, we're working through what a rotating schedule would look like, where students are grouped into cohorts to provide a balance of in-person instruction several days of the week. And when they're not in person, they would be in distance learning mode. We'll follow, again, a modified or half-day schedule to achieve this. And then there'll be a remote option for kids who stay home. How can we do this at Burley? We can do it by dividing students into groups, reassigning personnel, also looking at our one-to-one Chromebook initiatives to support the distance learning components to the structure, and also kind of reflecting on and implementing lessons learned from the spring. So much of our work right now and the work of the committees is focused on developing protocols around health and wellness. So by the beginning of August, we'll have ready to release what our pre-screening health check protocols will be, guidance from our nurses, as well as our school physician about how to handle when someone is suspected to be ill, guidance that's more granular in detail on face coverings, and then some of those building logistic matters like lockers and one-way hallways, etc. Second to caring for students' physical health, we want to make sure that our academic program is kept intact, right? So we did carefully cull through the distance learning survey results from the spring. And there is some optimistic news in there. So more than 80% of students in grades 5 to 12 said they were able to manage the change to distance learning. A sort of incidental benefit to accelerating our future ready practices was that teachers reported they were able to think more outside the box, although student attendance was the highest reported issue. 40% of parents identified live or pre-recorded lessons as the most helpful elements to support their child's distance learning. And so through the work of the committees, the leadership team and the teachers, we're looking to leverage the success of distance learning and take it to the next level. We know that professional learning is going to matter a lot. So right now we're running some professional learning institutes for teachers to help them better prepare for the upcoming school year. We also need to adjust our curriculum and the resources that are attached to our curriculum. So we need to look at things like our scopes and sequences, our pacing guides, our assessments. We also need to know we need to provide space and place and support for teachers to do that. And so we're planning for that now, as well as really looking carefully at the pre-assessments we have and that we can administer to students in the opening weeks of school to measure not only summer loss, but whatever gaps may have been created as a result of this spring's distance learning. Our Student Personnel Services Department that oversees special ed, ELL, and basic skills is working actively to make sure that classified students have schedules that match their needs as determined by the IEP team. We imagine the continuation of interdepartmental coordination of services, right? So guidance counselors, child study team members, special education teachers, working in unison to make sure at-risk students or students who have very specific needs, that those needs are met. We'll continue to focus our efforts on a multi-tiered system of supports to make sure that students' academic, behavioral, and social learning needs are met. As part of operationalizing the tenets of good communication, I want to share a timeline so people know not only what to expect, but when. As I aforementioned, this Friday, we'll be sending our third update of the summer that has a lot of tonight's presentation information in it, perhaps drill down with a bit more specificity, along with our second survey that asks, now that you know at a high level the structures of the school day, and now that you know we need to provide for a remote learning experience, will you be sending your child back to school? The first week in August, we'll message out our full reopening plan, and then we'll start, or I'll recommence weekly updates in the next few weeks. Here's what you can expect about the avenues we'll use to share our reopening plan. So right now we're really aggressively building content that we hope the community will find useful. So by committee strand, we're creating fact sheets and a comprehensive set of frequently asked questions. We imagine that will be the form that our plan takes. And we'll share it on all of our usual communication outlets. Outside of the committees though, if you have questions or comments or concerns, I encourage you to share them via our fall 2020 kenilworthschools.com email. These emails go directly to me and I'm chipping away at responding to them daily. A little SEL message myself, you know, in these kind of trying times here, it's easy to allow anxiety and fear to divide us and use it to criticize decisions and a source for blame. I hope that as a community, we rally against this and use the belief system that I shared at the start of this update to unite us, help support us, and take care of each other. They say the greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members. What a great time to show that compassion and care for each other. I'll be posting this presentation on the website, so it'll be available to the public in the upcoming days. And again, my update on Friday to the community will have this information in a letter form along with the survey, and hopes we can continue to take the temperature of the public. That's probably poor expression right now, right? Gauge the public about their intent to send their children back to school in September. Mr. David, I'm happy to address questions or concerns.
Any board members have questions for Mr. Arlington?
Mrs. Dragon, you are muted.
Tell me a little bit about the childcare. What will happen there?
Yeah, great. So we're looking to provide childcare for at least students in K through 6. It will need to be organized differently, right? There probably will need to be a little more structure around what aftercare looks like, but it is our intention to provide aftercare along with lunch for those students who need to stay. The modified day allows us to avoid feeding 700 kids, right, within 100 minutes. The governor still has not allowed, as of this morning, that could change, in-person dining. So to think that we can figure that out safely, I think is a possibility. But we know aftercare needs to look different because kids are going to be here for a longer amount of time now. So we need to provide that service to parents, but it's going to have a kind of post-pandemic spin on it.
Will this be for all children or just working parents or those that can't be there when the child comes home?
I think we would have a hard time figuring that out. So it's for those parents that will be part of the survey on Friday. As a result of this model, and if you're sending your kid back in grades K through 6, do you need childcare? Because we need some hard data around how many people are planning to take us up on the offer of childcare so that we can figure out what that looks like.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Mr. Ladati, you're muted too.
Hi, Kyle. Sorry. Do you think in the future, I mean, with the restraints on the facility and possibly teachers and time, do you think we're going to have to reduce getting away from more of the mainstream classes down in the future, the added norm, classes that kids are taking?
I'm not sure. Can you explain that a bit more?
Well, you mentioned something earlier that, some of the specialty classes that we offer the kids.
You mean like electives?
Excuse me?
Like electives?
Yeah, like electives, yeah.
I hope not. And I don't see that changing because at this time, the state of New Jersey hasn't really changed any of the graduation requirements. So kids still need to take those electives as part of fulfilling their graduation requirements. So I can't anticipate that changing. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Kyle, real quick. You're sort of in your closing statement, you're talking about anxiety and, you know, the sort of the fear of coming back in and all that stuff. And I appreciate your sentiment on that, but what has been the feedback that you've gotten so far? Has it been a lot of that? I sense it is, but is there any one consistent theme that keeps popping up over and over?
There's some fear that people are expressing, that teachers are expressing, and I think it's natural and that fear makes sense to me.
Right.
I think one thing that we haven't done yet is really release those fact sheets. And sorry, I hear like myself being echoed.
Yeah, we're getting feedback from somebody.
I think those fact sheets, Mr. David, will help to assuage some of the concerns, right? So people now are wondering, what are the cleaning and sanitation protocols? What will the symptoms check at the start of the day look like? And I think once we message that out, those who are open to having their concerns sort of quelled will. But I think there's just, as you know, part of the national tenor is that people are just generally anxious right now.
Thank you.
Hi, Kyle.
Hi, Dr. Panici.
So I just wanted to mention two things. Looking over the survey, and since you're talking about it, Brian mentioned it, if I'm correct, two of the biggest safety concerns that the parents mentioned was controlling for how are we gonna, I forgot specifically what the question said because I don't have it in front of me, but the parents' concerns were sick kids coming to school and sick teachers coming to school. So maybe when we do since those were the two of the most significant, they had the highest numbers of concerns from parents was, sick kids, just maybe make sure in the fact sheet that you send out, we can somehow address that since that was like the biggest concern. It also came up by multiple people in both scheduling meetings, like how are we going to handle sick kids? So that I just wanted to mention that to think about. And then I know that other towns were all doing the same thing, and other towns have sent out surveys. And I think our last survey was very good in terms of the way it was worded. I know in the past week, there are 3 surrounding towns in the county who have sent out surveys like ours for planning purposes. And then they got, a massive amount of parents saying, I'm responding this way, but do I have to commit to this? Can I change my mind? So maybe when we do the survey, we can put something in there, like we're asking for your, what you're going to do at this time, but it is a survey. It doesn't mean that your child cannot return, or just make sure that's clear. Because I think with surveys, people can say one thing one day and they are allowed to change their mind. So maybe in the wording, just, we can mention, so you don't have to deal with that on top of it, just saying like, we're anticipating. And if a parent does choose remote for September and maybe they do it for a month and they feel that it's not what they want and they want to send their kid back to school, if that's allowed, which we know it will, and if there's any process, I think that would be really helpful and would save us a little bit of time later on, because I definitely feel that will come up, because it's come up in the meetings we've had. And then I've seen like stuff that's happened in other towns, read about it. There were some articles. So just something helpful as we were talking about it for you to, put on your list.
Yeah, sure. I think making sure people's most trending concerns are given center attention on the fact sheets and the FAQs makes good sense. And, regarding the survey, sure. I think it's going to be a challenge to make sure people understand you can't vacillate daily.
Yeah.
To be an opportunity for a family who chooses for their child to be virtual to then come back to the in-person instruction.
Yeah, I get it. I definitely think that will come up, or should I say no, it will come up. So just do anything we can to kind of get ahead of that and anticipate it however you think is best. But
Sure.
That's it. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Kyle, I just had a quick question. Do you plan on, and I know the full plan is coming out, do you plan on leveraging any outdoor classroom type, features? I know logistically it's probably a challenge with technology, with people constantly moving in and out of the building. But is that a consideration that you're working on?
Yeah, it's a consideration. it has to be, and that too, Mr. Jankowicz, is a piece of the DOE guidance. So the state says try to use outdoor space whenever possible. Sometimes that's easier said than done, though, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden somebody has asthma or it's really hot, and we're trying to balance all of those protocols with just general building safety, right? You can't just have kids open to the public outside, but yes, it's a consideration. Yeah.
Well, if these people decide they want to stay home, take care of their children at home, teach them, and then they decide after a month, oh, we want to go back in, and it's a big number, how is that going to work with fitting the kids in? Well, you think that'll be an issue? Just thinking about it.
Yeah, so okay, great question. Let's take a piecemeal. On Harding, based on the very reasonable class sizes, right, and the furniture removed, if all students choose to come back, we can pretty much accommodate them, right? If they don't and then choose at a later time, we'll need to consider some of those other provisions that I had mentioned, like additional grade level sections. But that's also really disruptive to the teaching and learning process. But it's such an unusual circumstance, we may have to just find a way to kind of deal with that. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any. Mr. Arlington, were you done? Or
I was done, except as unrelated, as part of my just general report. On the agenda tonight, you'll see the retirement of Mrs. Westbrook. Just want to congratulate her and thank her for her years of service. And I also want to point the public's attention to an email blast that was sent out today by the Brewerly administration to the families of graduating 8th graders and 12th graders. They did a great job of really explicitly outlining directions for Wednesday's 8th grade ceremony and Thursday's 12th grade graduation ceremony. So if you haven't checked those out to the public, I hope you do, so that we can enjoy a smooth and successful set of ceremonies later in the week.
thank you, Mr. Arlington. And I'm just going to make a quick comment. Congratulations to Mrs. Westbrook. I know board members have heard Mr. Ladati and I talk frequently about the fact that Mrs. Westbrook taught us some 40 years ago when we were in high school. So again, congratulations to her, and I wish her the best in whatever the future holds for her. So thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so moving on, we will go to report of committees. And first up, as always, is Finance and Facilities. So Mr. Ladati.
Well, thank you, Mr. David. Good evening, everyone. The committee has been monitoring the process of the road back, which directs schools to open in September for in-person instruction. The complexities of the process include many pieces, a lot of which Kyle just mentioned on the finance side and as well on the facility side. On the finance side, the challenge has been how to provide for all the necessary accommodations that are required while dealing with limited resources and a reduction in state aid. The district will be using various revenue sources available, including the CARES grant and FEMA funding, to accomplish the myriad of needs. Very specific cleaning protocols and guidelines have been established, and additional staff will be necessary to ensure that buildings are properly cleaned and sanitized multiple times throughout the day. The Building and Grounds Department has conducted extensive inventory of our HVAC system and has cleaned and serviced all the units, and all new filters have been installed in anticipation for our return in September. That's for my report. For resolution, there are 21 resolutions for your consideration tonight. I'm not going to review each, as the majority are straightforward with the information contained in the packet. I will, however, report out on a few. I've completed a review of the financials and found them to be in order with no outliers, and there were no line item transfers over the $5,000 cap. That takes us to the remaining resolutions. Resolution number 6 is approval to submit an illicit law application, which allows the district to be eligible for $82,165 for potential security projects. 7, 8, and 9 are salary changes and tuition reimbursement. 10 is the a la carte lunch prices. 11 is the approval for the Class 3 special law enforcement officer. 12 is just basically an environmental plan for our works being done at the school with silica, dust, etc. 13 is agreement with Union County Ed Services for student evaluation and psych evaluations, etc. 14 is the non-public school nursing agreement, again, which we only act as the conduit. 15 and 16 are Trinitas Hospital agreements for speech and physical therapy. 17 through 19 are transportation costs. And number 20 are COVID-related expenses. For last month, we spent $59,000. Our total to date is pretty close to 100,000. We're at $98,939. Not sure the total cost to open. We're not sure what the total cost to open and maintain the schools will be moving forward. So that could be a big number. And that's all I have, Mr. David.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Ladati? Okay, I don't see anyone. All right, we'll move on to personnel and management. Mr. Hibither.
Thank you very much. Tonight we have 13 resolutions, and I'll go through them as quickly as possible. Number 22 accepts the resignation of Ms. Westbrook, and on behalf of the Personnel Committee, I'd like to thank you for your many years of service, and again, wish you the best in your retirement. Resolution number 23 approves the hire of a mathematics and computer literacy in the middle school, high school. 24 approves the hire of child study team social worker. Number 25 approves a hire for a school clerk in Brearley. 26 approves the hire of summer IT support staff. Number 27 approves the payment of unused vacation sick days for the departing middle high school principal. Number 28 approves the payment of unused vacation days for departing supervisor of guidance. Number 29 approves the payment of unused vacation days for the departing head custodian. Number 30 approves the transfer of staff members. Number 31 approves personnel for the ACE program staff. 32 approves the lead teacher stipends. 33 approves the summer professional development courses. And number 34 approves the payment of stipends. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
I don't see anybody. Okay, thank you, Mr. Hibither. We will move on to curriculum instruction. I know that Mrs. Zimmerman is not here tonight. Does anyone have anything to cover on her behalf? I do see.
President David, just that I've connected with Committee Chairperson Zimmerman to schedule a curriculum committee meeting, most likely towards the end of next week, where we can review adjustments to distance learning, and then also plan for to share out more of the academic sort of curricular and instructional pieces of information related to our return to school.
Thank you, Mr. Arlington. There is one resolution also under curriculum and instruction, which is basically the approval of the May HIB report. I don't see anything specific under policy this evening, but Mrs. Braun, did you have anything that you wanted to bring up? Okay, very good. Then we can move on to old business. Does anyone have anything to bring up under old business? Okay, I don't see anyone. Does anyone have anything to bring up under new business?
I do have one item
Go ahead,
regarding August public meetings. As we get more into robust discussions regarding our return in September, it may be advantageous for the Board of Education to meet in person as opposed to this virtually. So I would like to schedule a meeting with the steering committee prior to the August meetings to determine the viability of returning to meetings in person versus the current virtual setting. The committee can review the benefits, the risks, and the members' comfort level to returning in person, as well as the format options given the guidelines that are currently in place due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So probably looking for maybe the early first week of August so I can advertise it appropriately and make those changes and make those adjustments, if that's acceptable to the steering committee members on board.
I'm okay with.
Can I jump in? Okay. Can I just jump in for a second? If you're going to have in-person meetings, you have to assume there's going to be people from the public. Do we want to have a meeting where there's 20, 30, 40, 50 people in an indoor setting? I don't want to be there. When I can be home, either Zooming or on the phone, I don't want to have an indoor meeting because of the option.
That is definitely something that is one of those board comfort level risk discussions.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Absolutely. I'll probably, Mr. Briner, what we'll probably do is do a little survey of the board to see what their comfort level is. Because obviously that's a very valid concern for myself as well. I'm not necessarily fearful of catching it, but if I were, it would make it very difficult for us to proceed and do what we need to do. So I don't want to get this thing. So I don't disagree with you, but I just want to gauge the rest of the board to see what their comfort level is.
And I think
oops, go ahead.
allowed because we may allow to meet at the board and still do the Zoom meeting for the public. And then we could spread out in the boardroom. That's an option too, if you want to do that.
Well, I don't want to get into a discussion now about whether and how we might do it. The question on the table was members of the steering committee, free or able to meet, and as a member, I'm okay with meeting.
Me too. I'm also. Okay.
Dr. Panini, you okay?
I'm fine with meeting also in person.
I can tell you for myself right now, I'm inclined no. I'm not going to go to meeting because again, if you can have a meeting where there's only 10 of us and we can socially distance, but if you're going to have a public meeting where the public can come, if I come to a public meeting, there's 20, 30, 40 people, I'm going home. I'm not going to go. That's a risk I'm not going to take, at least for myself.
I think you made your point, Bob. Again, this is for the
I just wanted
to be made, and obviously, if board members are not going to be comfortable, then we're not going to do it. But
I just want to throw that out there.
Right.
I'm no problem meeting on the steering committee, Mr. David. So.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were the steering committee. Okay.
Yeah. Mr. David, I don't know if this is the right time. If I could jump in there for 1 second, just an update on negotiations without any detail, or do we have to go into closed session?
No, I mean, if there's no detail, I don't.
No.
See them.
I just said just that we met the other night. There's a memorandum agreement going around that's going to be trying to get signed. So we're very close to finalizing the contract. That's about as much as I should probably say.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Anything else under new business for anyone? Okay. We can move on and open the meeting to the public. Can I have a motion to open the meeting to the public?
Motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Biner. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Brown, I believe. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, the meeting is open to the public. Vince, you gonna read the?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Let's see. Public comment will be accepted only during the public comment period of this meeting. It is now open via public comments at publicschools.com or by calling 908-931-9696, extension 2325. You jump. Is it up there? Is it?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so we will wait a couple minutes. There is approximately a 30-second delay between our live feed and what people are seeing on their computer. So we'll wait a couple minutes there, and then we'll check the emails to see if we have any emails.
we know if anyone's viewing the live feed?
Yes, we do. There are currently 19 people watching.
That's pretty good. Okay.
Okay, that's a good minute and 15 seconds, so I think we are safe. We do not have anyone calling in, as well as there's no one on the, no one submitted a email via public comments.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion, we close, oh, public.
Oh, 32. Why didn't
Are you saying something, Vince?
There we go.
You there, Vince?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just want to correct it. There are 32 watching. Joe just told me. I might have my screen refreshed.
Okay, but we don't have anybody calling or emailing. So.
No, we're all good.
So we have a motion by Mr. Ladati to close the public portion of the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by, a second by Mrs. Drogan. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, the meeting is closed to the public for comment. At this time, we can move on to roll call of resolutions.
Okay, we have, first we'll vote on finance resolutions 1 through 21 on the agenda. Are there any that need to be voted on separately? Okay, so this is for resolutions 1 through 21. Mr. Ladati, would you like to make that motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that the board approve, or board consider resolutions 1 through 21.
Okay, is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Mr. Habeither?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do roll call now on that, those 1 through 21. Biner,
Yes.
Braun,
Yes.
Drogan,
Yes.
Habeither,
Yes.
Jankowicz,
Yes.
Ladati,
Yes.
Panici,
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Motion's carry unanimously. This is for resolution, personnel resolutions number 22 through 35 on the agenda. Are there any exclusions? Okay, hearing no exclusions, Mr. Habeither, would you like to make that resolution?
Yep, I'd like to make a motion to have resolutions 22 through 34 reviewed by
It's 35, resolution number
35.
32, 30 to 35. Okay,
35.
is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Braun?
Yes.
Okay, roll call on resolutions number 22 through 35. Biner,
Yes.
Braun,
Yes.
Drogan,
Yes.
Habeither,
Yes.
Jankowicz,
Yes.
Ladati,
Yes.
Panici,
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Motion's carry unanimously. For resolution number 36 on the agenda, Mr. Biner, would you like to make that motion?
Motion to vote on resolution number 36, which is the HIB.
Is there a second for that resolution?
Second.
Mr. Jankowicz? Okay. This is for resolution number 36 on the agenda. Mr. Biner,
Yes.
Braun,
Yes.
Drogan,
Yes.
Habeither,
Yes.
Jankowicz,
Yes.
Ladati,
Yes.
Panici,
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Do we have a need to go into executive session this evening, Mr. Ganella?
No, we do not.
No, we do not. Very good. Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move.
I have a motion made by Mr. Strogan. Was that?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Jankwith. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? The meeting is adjourned.
All
Have a
right.
great night, everyone.
Good night,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone. See you
Yeah.
soon. Be safe.
Yep, you too.
Safe.